So budget matrix is what most people use for their budget. And a matrix is just a rectangular array of information. And you can have a 1-month matrix or a year-long matrix. Matrix is made up of columns and rows, and those are used to name the size of the matrix. So when we talk about matrices mathematically, they can be used to solve systems of equations, and they can be used to do other kinds of mathematical calculations, and we name them. 6 by 10 would be a 6-row, 10-column matrix. So that tells you how big it is. These are rows, and these are columns, but you probably already knew that. The budget matrix is customizable. Here we have what's called like a checkoff matrix, or you can actually have dollar amounts in here. You know that you can change it. You can have individual categories, like large categories, or you can have small, really broken down categories. That's, I mean, it's very customizable. You can make it as big or as small as you want it to be. And that's why it's really commonly used. The budget checkoff matrix is like sample A. It doesn't use exact amounts. What it does is it's a frequency budget. So you have a check mark for how often you have to pay for things. So for example, here in insurance, I'm paying for insurance 1, 2, 3, 4 times a year. Frequency, how often it's happening. And this is all under the health category. So prescription co-payments is 6 times a year, over the counter every month, doctor's visit twice a year, life insurance 3 payments a year, health club dues once a year. So that's like a frequency budget. And then you have an expense matrix, which is like sample B. And that is where you actually list the amounts. So here, instead of just saying I have insurance 4 times a year, I'm showing that I pay $450 4 times a year. The expense matrix provides more information. Obviously, because you actually get to see the amounts, and it's better for most people. It's better for planning because then they can see the amounts. And we already talked about the order of the matrix is rows times columns. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, and then 13 columns. So this is an 8 by 13 matrix. Pie charts, which is a circular graphic display. And they're divided into pie-shaped segments, or, well, you know, pie piece segments. Each segment will represent a portion of the budget. Now, the nice thing about a pie chart is you can actually, if you use, like, say, for example, Excel or Quicken or some of these other budgeting programs, you can enter all your data in the matrix, so you have all the hard numbers, and then you can actually have the program generate a pie chart for you, which is nice because then you have like a pictorial representation of where your money's going. And you know, the size of the pie piece is the size of the money, and so you can look at that and you can say, wow, there's way too much money going in this section. It needs to be more over here, and you can make adjustments. So it's a nice visual representation. Okay, the line graph can be used to depict changes over time. So you can take all your information from like the year, you can plot it into a line graph. You can have one different color for each major category, and you can compare what's happening to your budget over time. Your bar graph is used to compare categories of data. Sort of like the pie chart, but easier to draw by hand accurately. If you're going to be making these by hand, the bar graph is easier to make than the pie chart. But you can look at a bar graph and easily see, oh, this part is way too much and this part's not enough and I need to make some adjustments. And then you have a budget line graph, and that's where you compare two categories of data. So you've got two lines on the graph. Okay, you basically you can take two areas and it determines how much you can spend in each area so that you can still fit it into your budget. And we'll go check off matrix. Now these are the easiest to make. You take this January through December and you write down all the things you have to spend, and then okay, mortgage is every month. Okay, so I know I have to spend my mortgage every month. And then utilities is every month. Sanitation is quarterly. So that means every 3 months, 4 times a year. We'll start in January, April, sorry. Is that right? Quarterly is every 3 months. So like that. Insurance is semi-annually, so that's twice a year, so January and June. Sorry, January and July. Internet is semi-annually, kind of weird. Landline, monthly. Cellular telephone, monthly. Most people don't have a landline anymore, but you know, if you do, it's monthly. Lawn and garden is monthly, April through September only. So these people live up north. Snow removal is November and January and March. So November, January, and March. Food is every month because, well, if you don't eat, you starve to death. Childcare is every other month beginning with February. So we start in February and then it's just every other month. And then the vet is semi-annually, so June and July, or January and July. Now what's nice about this type of budget we can quickly see expensive months. If you look at this chart, you can see that January and July are going to be your most expensive months. And so it lets you know how to break this up. So if I know I have to pay sanitation in January, April, July, and October, I can put away money in these other months towards it so that the expense is not so giant. Same thing with insurance. I can put away money all of these other months towards those 2 insurance payments. And that'll take the burden off of these really 2 expensive months that may be difficult to budget for otherwise, if you haven't planned. Okay, so in order to construct the pie chart, you break it into sectors. Okay, the sector is the shaded blue part. And the central angle is the angle that you measure. So you take the percent of your budget as a decimal, and you multiply 360 degrees, because that's how many degrees are in a circle, and that gives you the central angle for that category. Okay. Or you can break the circle up based on size. For example, the way they've done it right here, we have 6 parts, and they are total of 360 degrees, so they are 60 degrees each. But if you look at that, I've got 6 parts. I'd have to take 100% and divide it by 6, so I'm going to get some weird decimal. 16.6 repeating percent each. But we can take another circle and if you know you have a budget and there's a part of it that's 25%, I can break it up into fourths and pretend that those are equal fourths. You know, and I did it with a ruler and it's all nice and pretty. So this would be 25%. And then I could erase this bit right here because maybe there's something that is 50% of my budget. You know, things like that. But if you want to get it accurately, you take the decimal percentage times 360, which tells you the central angle, and then you use a protractor to measure your angle so that you get it correct. A pie chart that's already been created, we can interpret it, and as you can see, here are his different percentages. And we say he used a software program to construct the pie chart. How did the category affect his construction of the chart? Well, the percentages determined the central angle. And that central angle determines the size of the pie piece. Now we can use this and we can go even further. Let's say this is Jeff's monthly budget. So let's say Jeff's monthly budget is we'll just say $1,500. Okay. Okay, and I want to know how much does he spend on transportation? Well, transportation is 15% of his budget. So I take that 15% and I turn it into a decimal. And then I take my decimal and I multiply it by my total. And he spends $225 a month on transportation. Sometimes they don't give us the percentages. And we can figure them out using a protractor. So let me go grab one real quick. We measured this as 90 degrees. Okay. So we have some percent of 360 is going to be 90 degrees. So we're going to divide 90 by 360, and that's going to give us our percent. So you take the degrees divided by 360 equals your percent as a decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and measure these other ones real quickly. What were they again?
Miscellaneous 45, train 60, parking 40.
Okay, I must have measured that wrong. Okay, car wash was what?
25.
Okay.
Repair is 55. And insurance 45.
Okay, yeah, see that looks more like a 45-degree angle because 45 is half of 90. I looked at that wrong somehow. So what I'm going to do is I know a circle's 360, right? So by process of elimination, I'll take the 360 and I'll subtract the 90 and the 45 and the 55 and the 25 and the 40 and the 60, and I have 45 left over. Okay, maybe I did measure it right and it just looks weird to me because it's up and down or something. Alright, so those are all my degrees. So to find my percentages, I'm going to take each degree and divide it by 360. So when I take 90 and I divide it by 360, I get 25%. Okay, so I'm going to write those out here. When I take 45 and I divide it by 360, I have 12.5%. So I get 0.125 and then I convert it. And that would be the same up here. The train and the bus, if I take 60 and I divide it by 360, I get 16.6 repeating. 40 divided by 360 gives me 11%, 11.1 repeating. The car wash is 6.94 repeating, and then repairs is 15.27 repeating. Right, so just to make things easy, I'm going to round all of those to the nearest tenth. So this will become 16.7%. This will just be 11.1%, 6.9%, and 15.3%. So far, following me okay? Then I can figure out their transportation budget. Fuel is 25%, so I take 25 times 800, which should be, whoa. If you don't put the decimal in, you get totally the wrong answer. $200. Insurance is $100. Car repairs is $122.40. Car wash is $55.20. Okay, parking, so that's the 11.1. 88.8, so 88.80. Train and bus, so I imagine that they drive to the train station and go from there. So 133.60, and then miscellaneous, which is probably, you know, like air fresheners and whatever. So $100. And that is their entire transportation budget. Here we're going to construct a bar graph. Bar graphs are probably one of the easiest kind of graphs to construct. I recommend so we take our graph paper and we have dollar amounts go up the side and categories go along the bottom. And let's see, what our smallest amount appears to be 30. and our largest amount, 600. So I need to break this into a way that I can fit all of that information on there. So I'm going to see how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I have 12 spaces, so I can do them $50 each. And that will get me to the 600. So 50, 100, 50, 200, 50, 300, 50, 400, 50, 500, and then 50 and 600. Okay, so those are my dollar amounts. Oh, never mind. We're doing it by month, not by category. I was looking at it by category, but we're doing it by month, and so I need to total this first. So that's 140 plus 300, so that's 440. That's just 50. 590, 250, 440 again, 1100, 120, 30, and then 450 and 300 is 750 plus 30 is 780 plus 90 is going to be 870. So I need to go between $30 and $1,100. So instead of each of these being 50, I need them to be 100. Okay. Now, we can't be exactly perfectly accurate on this because I don't have enough space. You know, if we had taller, you know, if I had a full sheet of paper, we can make it really accurate and go by tens or something. So when I have numbers like 30, 30 is close to a third of 100, so we just get as close to it as we can. So then I label January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. And I'm going to have each month be 2 bars. Okay. Now January is $230. So here's the 200 mark, and we're going to go about a third of the way up. Trying to make it look nice. And we need to color that in. And then February is 120, so here's 100, that's 200, 150 is halfway, so 120 is about a quarter of the way up. So there's February. And then again, once you've got all your heights, you just color it in to make your bars. And you don't have to use 2 colors, but I think it looks better if you use 2 colors, because if you use 1 color, it sort of smashes all together. No, if you overlap, it goes darker. Every time I do another layer, it gets darker and darker. Okay, so now, if you look at this budget, you can see, okay, this is only health expenses, but you can see health expenses are all over the place. We're going from $30 up to $1,100. That's a lot of jumping around. What you should do if your budget for health looked like this, is take the average. Okay, so we're going to take all of these totals from every month. So 230 plus 120 plus 480 plus 440 plus 50 plus 590 plus 250 plus 440 plus 1100 plus 120 plus 30 plus 870. That gives us 4520. Divide that by 12. So your average is 376.67 per month. So I would just round that to 380. And this would be your average line. That would be how much money you'd want to put away every month for health expenses. That's how much you would count as health. That way, in January, you'd spend your 230, but you'd have this extra 150 right here. And in February, you'd spend your 120, but you'd have an extra 260. Then in March, some of that money would go to cover that overage. So you see, like, if you're putting away that average every month, then when September comes along, now, you know, this is going to be a kind of a problem in here, but when September comes along, it won't be this giant peak where you have suddenly to come up with this $1,100. You'll have money put away. Okay, here we're going to need graph paper again, so hold on 1 second. We have Monday through Sunday, and then we have week 1 through week 3, and we have dollar amounts. So what I'm going to do is week 1 will be a blue line, week 2 will be a red line, and week 3 will be a black line, because I'm going to compare my usage each week. My smallest dollar amount is 10. My largest dollar amount is 35. 40. Sorry. So my dollars need to go between 10 and 40, which is actually not too bad. So here's my dollar line and my days of the week line. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I need to go between 10 and 40. So I'm going to go by 5. So 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Okay. Week 1. On Monday, I spent 18. On Tuesday, 17. On Wednesday, 12. On Thursday, 19. Friday, 24. Saturday, 35. And Sunday, 30. So that's week 1. Use a ruler so it looks prettier. On week 2, I spent $10 on Monday, 19 on Tuesday, 15 on Wednesday, 20 on Thursday, 29 on Friday, 24 on Saturday, and 22 on Sunday. And then week 3, 13, 12, 18, 23, 40, 30, and 27. Okay, I guess it's not spent. This is minutes. So these are her minutes. If you look at this, you can see that there's a pattern here. She doesn't talk much at the beginning of the week, and then she talks a whole lot Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So she needs to look at possible cell phone plans, either some plan where she could talk for 40 minutes every day all month. But if she wants to, minimize her spending, keeping in mind that back when this book was written, they didn't have so many unlimited plans, you would want a free Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or, more minutes on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you could get away with less minutes during the week, kind of a plan. Any questions? All right, so your cash flow is your money in and out with the balance at the end. If you have a positive cash flow, you have more money coming in than you have going out. Positive cash flow is what you want. If you have a negative cash flow, you have more money going out than you have coming in. This is not what you want. Cash flow analysis is analyzing your cash flow to create a budget, to fix a budget, or to make goals. So cash flow analysis is to analyze your cash flow, like to the penny. You want to analyze every penny that you spend, like you chart it, you keep track of, like if you put a quarter in a gum machine, you write it down, kind of thing. So you're analyzing your cash flow to create your budget, to fix your budget, or to make and reach goals. Okay. By analyzing your cash flow, you can see where this money out is being wasted. How many days a week do you buy a soda in the vending machine, or impulse buy something at the store? You go to get gas and you walk in the store to pay for the gas and you decide you need a Slim Jim and a Slurpee or something. You know what I mean? Like these are things that you didn't budget for, you didn't plan for, but you went, ooh, shiny, and you went and got it, right? Cash flow analysis helps you to recognize those things and either decide, okay, I can budget this much in for that kind of thing, or I need to get rid of that altogether. So we have a sheet here we're going to talk about with this. Okay, so Dave and Joan are charting their monthly cash flow, and they're creating a spreadsheet. So here's their spreadsheet of their monthly cash flow. This is their money in. Right here, that's money in. Everything else is money out. Okay. Their cash flow is what's left over at the end. Luckily for them, it's positive. So they have a positive cash flow, which means they're bringing in more than they're sending out. Now when we look at this, first you make a list of your income after tax. Okay, this is how you do a cash flow analysis. You make a list of all your income, every income. So if you babysit every Friday for 20 bucks, put that in there. That's $80 a month. Anything that you get towards income, any money coming in. Then you have fixed expenses. Okay, fixed expenses are the same from month to month. So this is your rent, your mortgage, that's the same every month. If you do budget billing on your utilities, that could be considered a fixed expense. Loan payments don't change. So car loan, student loan, those payments don't change. If you have a credit card that has the same monthly payment every month because you're paying like the minimum, that could be considered a fixed expense, or you could put it under a variable expense if you like to pay more or less on it every month. Insurance premiums like car insurance, life insurance, things like that, those don't change. So those are all your fixed expenses. So those come next because those aren't going to change. Then you have your variable expenses. These change every month. So like your food or utility expenses are variable. On this, you're going to be doing an average. Or if you want to play it safe, go higher. You don't ever want to put in the lowest you would spend on food in a month because you're trying to figure out your budget, right? So you're going to do either the average of everything you spend over the year, or you're going to aim high and just budget in the highest amounts that you would spend. Like, for example, grocery shopping, the month you run out of all the condiments and have to buy those all again. You know, things like that. And then you have a savings, and they consider that this should be a fixed expense because you should have a goal of putting away so much money per month, and that should be considered a fixed expense. Now, if you look at their cash flow, we have our fixed expenses, okay, and there's their mortgage, car loan, student loan, personal loan, health insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance. Okay, they have those fixed expenses. Then they have their variable expenses, and these are either their averages or how, you know, they aimed high. Debt reduction, this is basically extra on debt. So either credit cards or loans. So some people budget that in, like, here's my bill. My student loan bill is $200 a month, but I want to pay it off faster, so I'm going to budget in another $100 as debt reduction to pay towards that. So this is money to get their debt down faster. Then you have the non-monthly expenses. You put those in per year, but then you prorate them. And if you look at that, you divide them as if they were monthly expenses. So when we add up all of their non-monthly expenses, we have 12,000, and then we divide it by 12 to budget in 1,000 every month. This is like I was telling you to do with that bar graph where we found the average. So the cash flow is monthly. So you divide the total non-monthly expenses, and then you prorate them for the month. So it's 1,000. So what ends up happening in this spreadsheet is we take this 6,100, we subtract this, we subtract this, we subtract this. Those are our total expenses. If you add those up, that ends up being that amount. And they have 110 left over, so they have a positive cash flow. This is good. If you had a zero cash flow, that's also okay because you could then take this 110 and put it into savings or into retirement or something like that. If you have a negative cash flow, though, that's when you have that problem. Now, your monthly budget could look like this. This could be your monthly budget every month. And then these amounts might change over time. But this is how you look at their cash flow analysis. And then things like, they've got in here entertainment, medical, sanitation, sewer, whatever. If I was doing this as for cash flow, I would add, instead of other, I would add a category called wasted. Because that like tells you this is money I didn't need to spend, and I would put things in there that like I said, if you go to fill up gas and you buy a Slim Jim and a Slurpee, that's wasted money. You didn't need a Slim Jim and a Slurpee. I would have put that under this category kind of thing. So that to draw attention to it in my own mind, like this category needs to go away, if that makes sense. For some people, this works. You put the dollar amount for each category, in a labeled envelope. Okay, this is cash. This is basically a cash accounting system. So you put the dollar amount for each category in a labeled envelope. When the envelope's empty, that money's gone. Some people, if you work a cash business, like a cash job where you make like a lot of tips, waiting, tables, things like that, this actually is kind of good because you take your tips and you break them up into the different envelopes each night. Like this much needs to go towards rent, this much needs to go towards groceries, this much needs to go towards whatever, this much I can spend on whatever. So you have envelopes for each different category: rent, groceries, electricity, cable, food, entertainment, you know, things like that. And once the envelope is empty, so for example, you have an entertainment envelope and you had $50 in it. If you spent that $50, then that's it. You can't take money out of the other envelope. And for some people, this works very well, especially if, like I said, if you work in a cash-based job, this can be very effective. This works really well for people that don't keep track of their ATM cards and how much they're spending on debit, because then you take the cash and you put it in the different envelopes. And of course, you'd leave the rent envelope and things like that at home. You just can carry the I'm allowed to spend this envelope. And then when that money's gone, that money's gone. You don't touch the other money. The frequency budget plan, this is the checkoff matrix. We talked about that already. Like how often each one gets used. And then we have the year-long expense budget plan. This is like sample B in the last section. But instead of just being health, it would be all of your categories. So you'd have, you know, across the top, January through December, and down the side you'd have mortgage or rent, electricity, gas, you know, you'd have transportation section, you'd have your health section, you'd have all your sections for everything that you have to spend money on in a year. So it's just bigger than that sample B. Bigger, longer, not bigger, wider. We're going to look at this and we're going to talk about we're going to create like a more detailed frequency budget plan for them. So we're going to look at their primary employment. They had $2,800 and they get paid semi-monthly, so they get 2 payments a month for an annual amount of $67,200. Their secondary employment was $500 monthly for a total of $6,000, making their total income $73,200 for the year. Their food is $185 a week, 52 weeks a year, $9,620 a year. Personal transportation, $37 a week, so that's probably gas, for a total of $1,924 per year. Public transportation, they're not doing. Household and child care they didn't have, but they eat out, and they spend about $35 a week on that, for a total of $1,820. They spend $40 to $6 a week on entertainment, for a total of $23.92. And therefore, their total monthly expenses end up being $15,756 for the year. Or weekly expenses, sorry. Okay, their monthly expenses, they have a mortgage, which they pay monthly. So they pay $28,800 a year on their mortgage. They have monthly utilities, They have a landline and cellular. They have a car loan of $200. Oh, I wrote the wrong number up here. How come none of you guys catch that 120 times 12 is not $2,000? Okay, they have a car or student loans. Really cheap payment on a student loan apparently. Personal loan, also very inexpensive. Car insurance. Homeowners insurance. Savings. Debt reduction. Other. For total monthly expenses of $44,160. And then finally they have annual and semi-annual expenses. So medical dental is annual. Car related is annual. That's probably like the big month, like down payment on your car insurance. Life insurance is 4 times a year. Tuition is twice a year. You must not take summer session. Vacation is once a year. They only buy gifts twice a year, apparently. Charitable contributions once a year. Probably before tax time. And then taxes. Which gives you 12,000. So your total expenses are 71,916, and your annual surplus is 1,284. So that's an extra $1,200 or $1,284 that you have for whatever. You can put it in savings. You could decide, I'm going to take a nice weekend, blow it in Vegas. But you have, if you've done your cash flow analysis, you can have this surplus. You won't be living, 0 to 0 every month. Or worse. So liabilities is money you owe. Okay. Assets is what you own that has value. Okay. So I own a bunch of reusable shopping bags that I bought at, various stores for 99 cents each. These are not an asset. They have no value. I can't turn around and sell them and get money for them at this point. I've used them. Nobody wants them. So assets are not just what you own, but it's what you own that has value. So your home, your car, nice furnishings, not, particle board bookshelf for 20 bucks from Target or Walmart or whatever, but nice furnishings, home, car, money in your bank account, stocks and bonds, jewelry, valuable things. And so if you take somebody's assets, you add them all up, so you're going to total these, and you're going to total their liabilities, and then you're going to subtract them and decide what their net worth is. So we'll do that real quick. All right, so I calculated Liam's assets at $673,180 and his liabilities at $447,000. So to figure out his net worth, I'm going to take his assets and subtract his liabilities. And his net worth is $226,180,000. Last year it was $205,000, so he has lowered debt or raised assets. And if you're talking about something like a house, while you pay your house off, your house is both a liability and an asset. The value of your house is the asset, but the amount you still owe on it is the liability. And so they kind of, at first, when you first mortgage it, it's all liability because you owe more on it than it's worth. And then as time goes on, it becomes more of an asset and less of a liability until eventually once it's paid off, it's all asset. So while you're paying on your house, it'll shift your net worth as you go. Tom's monthly liabilities and assets. So this is his debt to income. So his income is over here. His income is $8,300, and his debt is $3,400. So his debt to income ratio, we'll divide those, and that gives me 0.405 stuff. So he's at a 40.5% debt to income ratio, which is very high. And that's it. And your homework is the rest of the packet, odds.